It was so weird.
You know what? I hope Dave uses that in the outtakes. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your background.
So I'm Ben, I am a vet, and I'm the founder of VidiVet. That stereotypical wanting to be a vet childhood dream. I've always been ideas driven, and for me, the biggest pressure in practice had always been owners coming in not necessarily having as much insight. There's definitely a lot of visits that we saw that were like not why are you here, because that wasn't fair to the owners, but you don't need to be here. There's a better way for us to support you as a business. And as a veterinary business, we're based on footfall. That's where revenues are generated. So you look at it and kind of think, there's almost a broken model here. So it was prime for digital disruption.
Where did the idea for your startup come from?
My wife's a pediatrician, and they started doing digital consults and things like that, and sort of adoption of telehealth in the human sphere. And I'm just looking at stuff thinking, not the same, but something like this is needed for pet owners, because there is no NHS for pets. One of the biggest barriers to veterinary care and people seeking veterinary care is money. When you look at average costs of a veterinary consult pushing 55, 60 quid, it's no surprise that people second guess it and, look to Dr. Google and look to Karen from Facebook. But it's one of them things where you think they're going to non-validated sources of information. I spoke to so many colleagues who were burning out, who just didn't have the flexibility in their workload. And you thought, it's almost this perfect alignment of owners wanting expertise and vets wanting flexibility. And actually you think, what, if you can give someone the opportunity to use that expertise from the comfort of their couch, from, a beach in Australia, from the ski slopes, all of these sort of different areas, we think your knowledge is still there, but we're limited by how we are allowed to share that knowledge. It's restricted to the consult room, really. And that to me was just let's give the vets the flexibility, which will hopefully improve our enjoyment of work and actually support pet owners.
Ben's pivoted twice during working with Nova because the original idea or the original problem, we refuted two kind of assumptions around the problem area, looking at different business models.
Whilst the picture and the idea was still the same, the original idea was that it was a B2B solution. That sort of, we came into some barriers in terms of revenue generation from veterinary practices.
So once you identified this problem and you had this idea, so what did you do next after that?
It was just churning away in the back of my head, not consciously thinking about what VidiVet was to become at all. And I was scrolling through LinkedIn, and an advert for Nova popped up actually. So I clicked it and I went through and ended up having a conversation with a guy called Dan Collins, who's just like you kind of just want to just take him home and introduce him to your mum and go, this is my best mate. I always used to think you have an idea and that's it. And the way he coaxed and sort of educated me through developing what that idea was that is VidiVet was it's incredible, because you look at it and you think, actually, you realize how much subconscious thought you have about something without bringing it to the fore. So that whole discovery process, and then we pitched the idea to the guys at Nova and at Deepbridge. And Dan actually phoned me to say, look, I just wanted to let you know that, both, it's a yes from both companies. They want to invest in it. And and I didn't really quite realize the gravity of what that was at this stage. This is basically an embryonic idea. And it's okay, some people are going to give you some money to investigate this. And I think for me, I was working full time. So, I didn't have the time to throw into it, but I had the knowledge and the expertise and the contacts to pass on. And obviously the way that it's worked with Nova is that resource that they've given us. And, I'm lucky that obviously Kate's my product manager, and as I say, can keep up with the chaos that is my brain. Would take you years to do yourself. You've actually got people doing that. And that sort of has just expedited that progression of the idea to what is now, where we got we've got an app that's about to go live. You just thought, this is bonkers.
So why does your domain expertise benefit the product or the business?
When I started chatting with Nova, start realizing actually you know a hell of a lot more than you think. The process of talking about something, people coaxing ideas and things out of you, you realize how much about that particular topic you know. And I think for me, I don't know anything about how we gel all of the tech together, but I know how to make that process join up to suit vets and to suit pet owners. And I think that sort of gelling of both sides of the expertise for me is what really helps, because I know my market. And I have to say, it's actually only through going through the process with Nova of realizing how well I actually know my market. You sort of take for granted how much you know. I think that's something I'd always say to other founders. Actually back yourself. You know a hell of a lot more than you realize. And trusting other people to tease that info out of you is really quite a cool thing.
Why did you believe this was like an important issue to solve?
In modern veterinary practice, we've got a huge shortage of vets relative to the number of pets, which means that the quality of service that we are able to deliver is compromised by speed, by, footfall. It's not a replacement, it's an enhancement. And sitting there thinking, if we can send pet owners into the vets, knowing a little bit about what their condition are, knowing what questions are pertinent to that case, knowing what tests they might expect to have, and perhaps more importantly, what those tests may cost, then it's pre-arming them. And it means that for me as a vet, it makes that journey a lot easier, because actually that owner is coming in more focused. They're coming in more informed. So actually it saves me 10 minutes of time, because I'm not having to jump through a load of hoops. They've already got, if it's a dog coming in with an ear problem, they're going to go to me, right, well, VidiVet has told me to ask this. They've told me to ask this. They've told me to expect that you might do a swab of this dog's ear, and that it's probably going to come back to me in 2 days. But in the meantime, they might give you a cleaner. And you think that is gold dust. No vet wants to do a bad job. But when you're rushed, you can't do as good a job as you want to or as you're expecting to. We reckon that around 70 to 80% of visits to veterinary practices are unnecessary, for things like picking up medications, for things like going back with a sample. We tell our patients, right, okay, when you're going in, actually take this sample with you, because it will save you having to go back another time. It's all just time saving and efficiency improving steps.
And I like to think of it as you're enabling everyone to add the appropriate value at the right point. The veterinary practice can give the value that's required for the physical service, and the virtual digital vet can add the value that they can provide at that point as well.
What is the vision for VidiVet long term, and where do you sort of see it going in 5 years' time?
For us, that first thing was going from 0 to 1 and saying, look, once we've helped one pet parent, that's us off and running. And then it's 2, and then it's 5. And, we're currently in our 50s of clients. And, the hope is that in a few months we're in 100. In 5 years' time, I would love to say that, there's over 1 million people using VidiVet globally. For us, we're seeing that it works. Now it's saying, look, how far can we take this? And where VidiVet is now is completely different position through that educational journey of the last 12 months to where we thought it would be 12 months ago. And to me, that's fascinating. And I think to predict where we are in 5 years is almost mind blowing. But you think, actually where we can join that whole journey for bringing every element of a pet owner's ecosystem together, that would be phenomenal to me. So, like if we've got a platform that engages pet parents with, groomers, with dog walkers, with kennels, with vets, and they can book directly with all of these things, like, the possibilities are endless.
So how has COVID-19 had an impact on your startup?
We've seen the adoption and growth of some other telehealth veterinary platforms, which obviously shows that there's a market appetite for this. We've seen adoption for that from pet owners and pet parents and people that have sort of said, okay, well, this is the new way that we're engaging. A lot of veterinary practices, we're not having owners into the practices now. So, they're dropping their pet off, we're taking them in, and then one of the nurses is taking them back out, and then we're having a phone conversation. It's created quite a convoluted journey. But actually what it's shown is that digital engagement at the front end and the back end of those conversations is possible and is useful for pet owners. And I think for me, that just basically shows that we're barking up the right tree, so to speak. I really didn't actually intend a pun there. But like you look at it and think, well, that digital veterinary journey is here. It's now. The time is, you know, today. There's not many generations of veterinary practitioners that have been around when you've had this shift from one thing to the next thing. And obviously for us, it's that, you know, physical to digital engagement. So it's, yeah, it's quite cool. Again, it's something else that's expedited the process of learning and adoption.
Would you recommend Nova to other founders? And, you know, how's your experience been with them?
I couldn't recommend it more, really. As I say, from my point of view, I look at it as a journey. And, you know, this isn't something that's going to be for everybody. But for me, I look at it and kind of go, having other people that have the skill, you know, you need to surround yourself by people that are better at other things than you. And I think everyone in our team can tell you that whilst I'm the best vet in the team, they are all the best at what they do. And I have ideas on these things, but they polish those ideas and they, you know, bring their own ideas that actually I look at and kind of, oh yeah, that's a much better idea. Let's do that. And I think that whole process of, you know, people see it as giving away equity, and I've never quite understood that mentality of, you know, giving away equity, because but you're giving away something to grow something faster and quicker. And actually, what's the point of owning 100% of something that's worth 50 quid than owning 50% of something that's worth 2 million? What I'm giving away here is really going to help me. And that's certainly been my experience of it, because what we have built is absolutely not what I would have built, and therefore I would have been wrong, because we've got all of this evidence to suggest it. And my wife will tell you that I hate being wrong, although I am on a regular basis, but we'll just never admit it. But I think, you know, from that side of things, that Nova journey for me has been absolutely the right decision for me in VidiVet. And I would say to others, look, you know, nothing ventured, nothing gained. You know, at least have the conversation and see where it works for you.
Oh, that's a nice summary. Okay, we're done. Anyway, thanks for your time today, Ben. And thanks, Kate, as well. But thanks for everything. That was absolutely fab.